Hi, guys, and welcome to Dread Central. How's it going today?
Pretty good.
Amazing.
How
Can
are
you
you?
introduce yourself to the Dread Central audience? And Alex, can I start with you?
Absolutely. So my name is Alex Anger, and I'm a Toronto-based prosthetics and special makeup effects artist. And we co-own a business together called Black Spot Effects.
Amazing. And Monica?
My name's Monica Pavez, and I am likewise all of those same things, and the other half of the business.
Amazing. How would you describe Black Spot Effects in a nutshell? And maybe Alex, I'll go with you.
Really lovely, wonderful space that we work in. We are both people who had worked in the industry for a good chunk of time working elsewhere. And we decided to take on a show on our own a few years ago, just because that's where we were at. And that sort of rolled into us opening a shop of our own and making it happen. Our priorities are having a really nice time while we're working around the clock and and enjoying ourselves as much as possible.
And Monica, how did you guys end up as a team?
So oddly enough, Alex and I actually were in makeup school at the same time 8 years ago now, actually 9 years ago now. God. So we had met there, but we had very little interaction. And then over the years, we sort of had worked around each other and not really with each other. And then I don't know, I think it was about 5 or 6 years ago now, we got the opportunity to do a small feature up north together. And it was sort of a last minute thing that someone else was supposed to go with Alex to do it. And I ended up filling in at the last minute. And sort of from the beginning, literally from the first makeup that we did together, we immediately fell into this like almost nonverbal rhythm. And it felt sort of like we were reading each other's minds throughout the whole thing. And afterwards, we're just like, this was amazing. I want to do this with you forever. So, and yeah, we just kind of used every opportunity since then to work together. And then when the show that Alex was mentioning came along, it was sort of a like, Alex had this, this opportunity up and then immediately sort of reached out and was like, hey, let's do this. What do you think? And I was all in. So yeah.
Wow. I'm already such a fan. I don't know why, but I am. You guys have worked on some pretty iconic genre titles from slasher to crimes of the future. So my wonder is, what is your relationship with horror? And was there ever a horror movie that really messed you up extra bad as a kid? Alex, can I go with you first?
Sure. So I will admit very openly, I am not a cinephile. I am like a trash watcher because that. But that being said, obviously working within this industry, you end up being a pseudo cinephile by default. So I only in retrospect do I realize how much horror I actually watched as a kid. Not really gunning to do that, but you fall into what you fall into. I would say for me, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original, my brother showed that to me way too early without my mom's knowledge, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
That definitely, I think he also told me that, it wasn't filmed where it was filmed, and it was filmed in a small town just outside of where we grew up, just to like plant that kid seed of like, it could just be down the street. He's probably right down the street. So that definitely stopped.
That's terrifying. And Monica, what was your sort of beginning of your relationship with horror?
So oddly enough, and this is probably like blasphemous to say, but I'm not a big horror fan. I don't like being scared at all. I always veer towards comedy and sort of like fantasy stuff. That being said, because of working in this, I have seen a lot of horror movies, but I'm 100% the person that if it was ever in a theater or actually even at home, I'm like, I wear a hoodie purposely so that I can have it up, and I'm like watching like this and like plugged ears and like all the lights or whatever. So and I mean, working in this and making the things, you kind of start to view things differently because you're in it and making it, and you're looking at disgusting reference images sometimes. So your perspective shifts. So I've started to be able to watch a lot more with a different appreciation for things. So, but I tend to veer when I do watch horror, I do like the more psychological stuff. So, but in terms of like a movie that stuck with me, I don't know if this is, I mean, I suppose it would qualify, but I always remember Stigmata, because anything with like devil possession, anything like that, I find it fascinating, but also, yeah, it's like I guess a train wreck. You can't look away, but I'm also so terrified. But yeah, I don't know. That movie was always pretty cool.
I love that you brought up Stigmata. Nobody brings up Stigmata anymore. And I think about it once a week.
Yeah. You're like, oh, there's so many better things. And I'm like,
oh yeah. It's garbage, but I'm obsessed with it. So I love that you brought it up today. Do you guys remember either together or as individuals what the pinpoint moment was when you were like, yes, special effects, that's it? Alex?
I would say for me, again, looking back, I sort of questioned like why I decided to go to makeup school, and it just sort of all happened.
Yeah.
And it was about probably 3/4 of the way through the program. You know, you've gone through fashion, you've gone through beauty, and so on and so forth, all wonderful. But nothing that really clicked for me. But the end portion of the course that we both took was a prosthetics portion and a creature design portion. And I think as soon as I got into that realm and started sculpting and sort of getting a feel for how much goes on behind the scenes and then eventually on set, that was the moment where I was like, oh, this is what is lighting my fire for sure.
Cool. And what about you, Monica?
So my background in terms of skill set or whatever was always very art focused. But as growing up, they're just like, oh, you can be an artist, and you're like, well, what does that really mean? But I do remember watching the probably, I don't know, 9 or 10 hour extended set of all the Lord of the Rings behind the scenes stuff when they released like their huge,
oh yeah,
I don't know, the 3 sets.
I remember.
Like, yeah, so much footage. And in that, they had a bunch of videos about the makeups, all the prosthetics, just the insane amount of work that went into making everything. And that was actually the first moment that I ever had that kind of moment click of like, oh, people do this for a living. Like I've watched it on screen for years, but it just sort of never really registered with me that you could do that. And also seeing Tammy Lane in the videos and being like, oh, there's also like a woman doing it. That's pretty cool. So that was probably the first moment that I can kind of look back on and be like click, that was there. And then when the makeup school came about, it was because my partner at the time had a friend who was going through it, and I kept seeing posts of the prosthetics portion or whatever. And just at that moment in my life was super, super lost and was like, yeah, that is the perfect kind of confluence of everything that I do. And that would be great. So let's do it.
Cool. I can't wait to like frame this article as how Lord of the Rings led to Crimes of the Future. I'm gonna sell you out. And speaking of, how would you guys describe your official involvement in David Cronenberg's Crimes of the Future? What was your like exact role?
So we were the prosthetic designers, and Black Spot built all of the prosthetics and makeup effects for the film, as well as, body bits and all of that fun. So we had just a little backstory is we had met David Cronenberg while filming season 4 of Slasher, and he had come in because, no spoilers, but his character does not make it out alive. So we needed to make an entire likeness body of him. So obviously he was coming in for a life cast, and he's such a lovely man, and he came in and we life cast him all day, and he's an angel through the entire process. But he never had actually seen the body. So when we had wrapped the season and they were sort of doing a press day, and production had asked us to bring the body so that David could check it out. And through that, he saw the body and, thought it was great, and we had lots of fun with that. He then actually borrowed it for a short that he and his daughter Caitlin Cronenberg had shot together that became an NFT.
Cool.
So we brought it to the house and tucked it into a bed and had just a really lovely that. It's through that process that he had then reached out and said hey, you want to come to Greece and film a thing? And we were like, yes.
Whoa. Monica, how is this job different from previous gigs?
Crimes of the Future specifically?
Yeah.
Well, I think going and filming in another country was definitely a first for us. And because you always, when you're filming in your hometown, as it were, you know where everything is, how long, like timelines for things in terms of even materials and whatnot. So filming over in a different country in the middle of a pandemic, while the country was also being ravaged by wildfires, was interesting. But for Cronenberg specifically, which I think he's fairly well known for at this point, but he doesn't do shot lists. And as prosthetic artists, had we thought about it more, maybe we would have been more intimidated by it, but we were just like, yeah, we're in. Cool. And once you're into it, like the idea of not knowing how something's going to be shot is definitely more complicated, because then, you're having to build larger or on a bigger scale than you maybe necessarily would. Knowing, okay, it's going to be seen from here only ever, so don't worry about the rest of it. And then on this, we're like, well, we're very much worried about all of it, because we don't know what you're going to see in the end. So yeah, it was phenomenal, but it was just, I think had we thought about it more, it would have been a scarier endeavor, but we were sort of all in from the beginning. So.
Blindly forge ahead, that's for sure. I will also say to that our build timeline was incredibly, all things considered, incredibly short. So it was also being up, what can we get done in Canada quickly to then continue building in Greece. We knew that we would be building throughout the film, which was also exciting because it's an ever evolving situation, and Cronenberg's amazing to work with in that way, because it's, as much as it's an old script, and he absolutely stuck to that script as it was written, 25 years ago. It was an ever evolving process. So it was really interesting to bring what we had already had and then continue making things there. And
even from a design standpoint, it was interesting because he's not entirely sure what he wants to see. Sometimes he needed to be shown a few designs, and then it was like, oh, that's what I'm looking for. So as much as sometimes you're wanting a more specific answer, it did give a lot of freedom to kind of play with what we thought something should look like, or how it might work in that particular scene. So yeah.
Very cool. How many ears were there? I'm just
I think
there was 32.
Oh my God. So
yeah, because it ended up being a 35 piece makeup in total.
Initially there were just going to be I think the 2 ears, and I think it was, again, and this was the beauty of this project, a few days ahead of time, we were chatting with David on set, and he was like, I'm thinking about the ear thing. I just was like, let's just ears. And we were like, okay, let's do this thing. And again, like, it's one of those things where in the moment, and you're tired, and you're already off the rails in terms of timeline, but you just go through, and both thrilled that he made that choice, because it's one of our favorite things from the film, for sure.
Oh, it's already so iconic, and it's only just made its debut. So big congrats. Are there any particularly nasty effects on that movie you can tell us about that that were your favorite, maybe in the trailer, so you're not going to get sued?
I won't say too much. I would say the thing that I'm surprised has bothered people so much, but again, when I take myself out of the person who was making those things, I can understand it, is the rip lock, which is the sort of incision, the zipper incision that you see Léa Seydoux interacting with. And again, for us, you show up on set, you do the thing. The entire cast was incredible and so lovely, and we'd be laughing our heads off, and then they would go for a take and be so serious and so in it. So it didn't really clock to me that made people feel so icky until people were sort of talking about the trailer and being like, oh, like that's the turning point. So for me, I think that's what I would say is the grossest thing. There's definitely some other gore that will probably bother people, but that's the thing from like, I don't really know how to interpret how I'm feeling. I think that's what hits the spot for me.
Yeah, no. There's definitely some other things that aren't in the trailers that I think people will be bothered by. for various reasons, but I would agree with Alex because I do remember when we were filming that scene with the interaction with the zipper piece, that some crew members around us were, and you know, they at that point they'd seen all kinds of things, you know, they're sort of like seasoned as it were. And that moment, and just because of the way that scene played out and the way they just, and Leia was just so, just everything about it was great, but during takes you would kind of like look over and there would be, you know, a grip or a camera member just kind of like
just grimacing, you know,
That's
that.
so funny.
Like, yes.
Yeah, that's a good sign, probably.
yeah, exactly. We'll take it as a compliment.
Well, I'm so excited for Crimes of the Future, but we have like a lot of mega slasher fans that read Dread Central. So I was wondering, how many seasons of that did you guys work on? And are there any particularly nasty effects that are your favorite from that series?
So I've been on since season 1.
Whoa.
I came in a little baby effects person, really not knowing a whole lot of anything, but it's a really great show. I mean, I shouldn't say a show for that. It's not a great show for that because you need to know what you're doing. It was a really wonderful opportunity because the production is so wonderful and so collaborative that it was going through the growing pains. And from a completely self-serving standpoint, I learned so much about figuring it out. Like, we're on the fly, this is what's happening, this isn't working, we're going to do this thing over here. And that's so important in this industry and in every department, but definitely within prosthetics. It's, you know, have 4 plans and then a 5th in your back pocket kind of thing.
Cool.
And then we as Black Spot have been doing the past 2 seasons. So season 4 and 5 are under our company.
Amazing. And Monica, what's like your favorite effect from the last couple of seasons?
Oh, I mean, for season 3, I did, actually, that's not true. I thought it was a funny, just interesting kind of thing, the auger death in season 2, but season 3, because for me, it was a lot of fun to do. And my main involvement started in season 3, was the Frank decapitation. Because it was just, I don't know, things like that are always fun to do. And there's so many elements to doing a death like that. And it just kind of, though it's, those days are just so intense and you finish, and like I have some great pictures where Alex is just drenched in blood because it was flying everywhere. But it's, like you said, very collaborative. It takes so many people to make something like that come together. And yeah, I don't know. It was just for many reasons, but yeah, I liked that kill.
Cool.
I would say in terms of like blood and like gore insanity.
Yeah.
The Jaden death in season 4 is what everyone on our end definitely references as like, that was a thing. Was an insanely intense day for every person on set, most importantly Cordion, who was incredible and in a trick box the entire day and screaming his face. Limbs were getting ripped off.
Yes.
But I was, from a standpoint, that seems to stand out as the like, that was pretty awful. We saw it and we were like, ooh, okay, great.
Yes. People are taken aback by the gore on that show to this day. It's like infamous in our community. So we thank you guys. We really do. Before I let you go, I'm wondering, where on the internet can people find you guys?
So we're on the periphery of the internet. No, we're making a newer website as we speak, because right now it's just our logo and like an Instagram button. But that is blackspoteffects.com, which I'm not very excited to look at, but soon will be more exciting. And on Instagram, we're just at blackspoteffects.
Mm-hmm. And Monica, what about personal? Like, where, if you wanted to be found, where could people find you guys?
Have a personal work Instagram that is just at Monica _Pavez.
Awesome.
I'm Alexandra Anger MUFX.
Okay, well, people follow them because they're icons. Thank you so much for chatting with us today. This was very, very fun.
We appreciate it.
you.
Thanks so much for taking the time.
Amazing. Now that we're off the record, I'm wondering, could you guys send me behind the scenes pics, like maybe from Slasher? Is there anything like that you might be able to send my way for the article?
Yeah,
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
People love that stuff, and so do I. So any kind of behind the scenes stuff, any kind of process stuff that you're comfortable with us publishing, please send my way, because I can't wait to get this into the world.
Awesome. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Can you on the weekend, and I only say that because the next few days
Take as much time as you need. Yeah. The weekend would be perfect. Totally.
done in.
Thank you, and congrats and good luck with everything.